Commander Zeftar had seen many species surrender. The proud Vorthak had wept as their crystal cities shattered. The warrior Kreks had offered their ceremonial blades in defeat. The ancient ethereals had simply vanished into their dimensional folds rather than face capture. But never had he witnessed anything quite like this. The human delegation sat across the polished obsidian table in the command center of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. 3 representatives from what they called Earth. Dr. Elena Rodriguez, a xenobiologist with graying temples and steady hands. Captain Marcus Chen, a military officer whose uniform bore strange insignia. And Ambassador Sarah Walsh, a diplomat whose smile never wavered despite the circumstances. Zeftar's forearms rested on the table's surface, his chitinous exoskeleton gleaming under the ship's bioluminescent lighting. His compound eyes studied the humans with the patience of a predator. Behind him, his tactical officers maintained their positions, weapons charged but not yet drawn. The humans had come aboard willingly, after all. They claimed they wanted to negotiate. "Your species has caused considerable disruption to our expansion protocols," Zeftar began, his voice resonating through the universal translator with the authority of someone who had conquered 14 star systems. "The galactic hegemony has maintained order for 3,000 cycles. We bring civilization to the primitive, structure to the chaotic, peace to the warlike." Ambassador Walsh nodded politely. "We understand your perspective, Commander. However, we believe there may be some misunderstandings about our intentions and capabilities." The alien general's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Misunderstandings? Your kind destroyed our advance fleet at the Proxima station. You somehow penetrated our quantum shields and eliminated an entire battle group without suffering a single casualty. This was not a misunderstanding. This was an act of war." Dr. Rodriguez leaned forward slightly. "With respect, Commander, your fleet was attacking a civilian research station. They had children aboard. Families of the scientists working there. When you ignored our warnings to withdraw, we acted to protect them." "Acted how, exactly?" Zeftar's eyes narrowed to dangerous slits. "Our ship's sensors detected no weapon signatures, no energy buildups, nothing that should have been capable of such destruction. One moment our vessels were advancing, the next they were simply gone. Vaporized. As if they had never existed." Captain Chen spoke for the first time, his voice calm and measured. "We asked you to leave. Multiple times. We gave you coordinates for uninhabited systems where you could establish whatever outposts you needed. You chose to ignore our requests." The alien commander's claws scraped against the table's surface. "You think your primitive warnings carry weight? Do you understand what you face? The hegemony spans 600 systems. Our fleets number in the millions. Your entire species exists on a single world, dependent on one star, vulnerable to 1,000 different extinction events. Actually," Dr. Rodriguez interjected quietly, "we exist on considerably more than one world now. But that's beside the point. We didn't come here to threaten you or boast about our capabilities. We came to prevent unnecessary bloodshed." Zeftar rose from his position, his full 3-meter height casting shadows across the room. "Prevent bloodshed? You destroyed 12,000 of my soldiers in an instant. Their atoms were scattered across space so thoroughly that we couldn't even recover their essence cores for the Memorial of Valor. Their families will never know peace." The 3 humans exchanged glances, and something passed between them that the alien commander couldn't interpret. A weight, perhaps. A shared burden that seemed to settle on their shoulders like a physical thing. "Commander," Ambassador Walsh said softly, "we need you to understand something about humans. We are not naturally violent. We don't seek conflict. But, when someone threatens our children..." She paused, as if searching for the right words in the universal translator's limited vocabulary. "When someone threatens our children, we become something else entirely." "Your threats do not intimidate me," Zeftar growled, though something in the human's tone made his secondary hearts beat faster. "The hegemony has faced countless aggressive species. The berserker clans of Andromeda, the hive minds of the Outer Rim, the machine intelligences of the Void. All fell before our might. Captain Chen stood slowly, his movements deliberate and unthreatening. May I ask you something, Commander? Do you have offspring? The question caught Zeftar off guard. I have spawned 3 clutches. 2 have reached maturity and serve in the hegemony fleet. Why do you ask? Because then, you might understand, Chen replied. The research station you attacked wasn't just a military target to us. It was a school. A place where human children learned about the universe, about science and wonder and possibility. When your ships opened fire on that station, you weren't just attacking our people. You were attacking our future. Zeftar's mandibles clicked dismissively. Children are a tactical consideration, nothing more. In warfare, all populations are potential combatants or resources. The hegemony has clear protocols for such situations. Dr. Rodriguez's expression hardened almost imperceptibly. Protocols for murdering children? Protocols for efficient conquest, the alien commander corrected. Emotional attachment to offspring is a biological weakness that clouds judgment. Successful species learn to transcend such primitive impulses. The temperature in the room seemed to drop several degrees, though the environmental systems hadn't changed. Ambassador Walsh's perpetual smile finally faded, replaced by something that made Zeftar's instincts scream warnings he didn't fully understand. Commander, she said, her voice carrying a new undertone that the universal translator struggled to convey, I need to ask you a direct question, and I need you to answer honestly. In your attack on Proxima Station, did you knowingly target areas where human children were located? Zeftar straightened to his full height, pride inflating his chest plates. Our tactical algorithms identified all population centers and eliminated them with maximum efficiency. If your spawn were among the casualties, they were acceptable losses in service of galactic order. The silence that followed stretched for several heartbeats. The alien commander watched as the 3 humans seemed to age years in moments. Dr. Rodriguez closed her eyes briefly, as if in pain. Captain Chen's hand moved unconsciously to rest on something at his belt. Ambassador Walsh simply stared at him with an expression that reminded him, uncomfortably, of looking into the maw of a black hole. How many? Walsh asked quietly. How many what? How many children did you kill? Zeftar accessed his tactical files with a thought. 17 young humans were terminated in the initial bombardment. Their presence was noted and factored into our efficiency calculations. Something changed in the room's atmosphere. The air itself seemed to thicken, as if reality was holding its breath. Zeftar's compound eyes detected minute changes in the human's postures, micro-expressions that his experience with conquered species had taught him to recognize. But this was different. This wasn't fear or despair or even rage. This was something colder, more focused, infinitely more dangerous. 17 children, Dr. Rodriguez repeated, her voice barely above a whisper. Ages 6 through 14. I knew some of them personally. Bright, curious kids who wanted to be scientists or explorers or teachers when they grew up. Their potential contributions to galactic order were minimal, Zeftar replied, though he was beginning to wonder why he felt the need to justify standard military procedure. Young organisms of any species rarely possess significant strategic value. Captain Chen's laugh contained no humor whatsoever. Strategic value. That's what you see when you look at children. Resources to be catalogued and eliminated. It is the logical perspective, the alien commander insisted, though something about the human's reactions was triggering ancient prey instincts buried deep in his genetic memory. Emotion clouds judgment. Attachment creates vulnerability. The hegemony's success stems from our ability to see past such primitive impulses. Ambassador Walsh stood slowly, her movements carrying a grace that somehow reminded Zeftar of a blade being drawn from its sheath. Commander, I want you to know that we gave you every possible opportunity to avoid this outcome. We warned you. We offered alternatives. We begged you to reconsider. Begged? Zeftar's mandibles flared in insulted pride. The hegemony does not respond to begging from primitive species. We respond only to strength, and your kind has demonstrated none. The 3 humans looked at each other again, and this time the alien commander caught a glimpse of what passed between them. It wasn't fear or uncertainty. It was permission. A unanimous decision reached without words, backed by the terrible weight of absolute conviction. Dr. Rodriguez activated a device at her wrist. Admiral Harrison, this is the diplomatic team. Please relay the following message to Earth Command: negotiations have failed. The hegemony has confirmed intentional targeting of human children. Recommend implementation of Protocol 7. Acknowledged, Doctor, came the reply. Protocol 7 is authorized. All human assets in the sector are now weapons-free. Zefdar felt his primary heart skip a beat. What is Protocol 7? Ambassador Walsh's smile returned, but it was nothing like the diplomatic expression she'd worn before. This smile belonged on the face of something that hunted in the dark spaces between stars. Protocol 7, she said conversationally, is what we call our doctrine for dealing with species that deliberately target human children. It's quite comprehensive. We've spent considerable time developing it, actually, though we'd hoped never to need it. The alien commander's claws extended involuntarily. Are you threatening the hegemony? With what forces? Your species controls a handful of systems at most. Captain Chen checked a device on his uniform. Actually, as of about 30 seconds ago, your fleet in the Zirian system just ceased to exist. All 847 ships. The crews never even had time to send a distress signal. Impossible. Zefdar's tactical implant was still receiving telemetry from the Zirian fleet just minutes ago. You lie. No weapon exists that could eliminate an entire battle fleet instantaneously across such distances. You're right, Dr. Rodriguez agreed. No weapon could do that. But weapons aren't the only tools available to a species that truly understands the universe. The lights in the command center flickered, and, for a moment, Zefdar could have sworn he saw stars where the ceiling should be. Not stars as viewed from space, but stars as they actually were, massive fusion reactors burning across impossible distances, connected by forces and energies that made his most powerful weapons look like toys. What are you? He whispered. Ambassador Walsh tilted her head slightly, studying him with the detached interest of a scientist examining an insect. We're parents, Commander. And grandparents. And teachers and protectors and builders of things that matter. We're the species that looked up at the night sky and decided it wasn't far enough away. We're the children who grew up asking why and how and what if until we found the answers. The communications array suddenly burst to life with incoming signals from across hegemony space. Zefdar's tactical officers scrambled to process the flood of data, their compound eyes widening in disbelief as report after report flooded in. Sir, his intelligence officer reported, his voice shaking, we're receiving distress calls from 17 different systems. The Hydra fleet, the Centauri battle group, the Titan defense platforms, they're all gone, sir. All of them. In the same instant. Zefdar's worldview, built over centuries of conquest and domination, cracked like poorly forged metal. How? How is this possible? Captain Chen's expression was almost sympathetic. Commander, do you know what humans were doing while your species was busy conquering other worlds? We were learning. We were asking questions about the fundamental nature of reality itself. We discovered things about space and time and quantum mechanics that most species never even imagine. But, you have no great fleets, the alien commander protested weakly. Our scouts reported minimal military infrastructure. A few patrol craft, some orbital platforms. Dr. Rodriguez nodded. That's correct. We don't need fleets, Commander. When you understand the universe deeply enough, you realize that distance is an illusion. Time is negotiable. And matter itself is just information wearing a disguise. The deck plates beneath Zefdar's feet began to vibrate with harmonics that shouldn't have been possible. The air shimmered, and, for a brief moment, he glimpsed something that made his mind recoil in self-defense, the universe as it truly was, stripped of the comforting lies that limited perception told to keep sanity intact. You want to know how we destroyed your fleets? Ambassador Walsh asked conversationally. We asked them politely to stop existing. And, because we understood the fundamental codes that govern reality, they obliged us. The communication systems crackled with another priority transmission. Commander Zeftar, this is Admiral Kefvar of the Home Fleet. We have a situation. The humans, somehow they've reached the capital world. They're not attacking, sir. They're just there. Waiting. Zeftar's legs gave out, and he crashed into his command chair. The capital world was protected by 7 layers of defensive systems, quantum barriers that should have made it impossible to even approach, let alone reach the surface. It was the most secure location in hegemony space, home to the Council of Admirals and the genetic archives of 100 conquered species. How many ships did they bring? He managed to ask. That's just it, sir. There are no ships. No energy signatures. No detectable technology at all. There's just a single human standing in the council chamber, waiting to speak with the Admiralty. Ambassador Walsh heard the transmission and nodded approvingly. That would be Dr. Kim. Excellent physicist. Terrible at poker, but she understands multidimensional mathematics better than almost anyone. What does she want? Zeftar whispered. The same thing we wanted when we came aboard your ship, Captain Chen replied. To give you one last chance to choose peace over destruction. The alien commander's compound eyes darted between the 3 humans, searching for some sign that this was an elaborate deception. But his sensors detected no lies, no deception. Only a calm, implacable certainty that terrified him more than any weapon ever could. The hegemony will not surrender to a primitive species, he declared, though his voice lacked the conviction it had carried minutes before. Dr. Rodriguez's expression softened slightly. Commander, we're not asking you to surrender. We're asking you to evolve. Your hegemony has spent millennia conquering and controlling, but you've never learned to truly create. You've never discovered the joy of building something greater than yourself. And you've never understood the most fundamental truth about intelligence, Ambassador Walsh added quietly. The strongest species isn't the one with the biggest guns or the most territory. It's the one that produces the most teachers, the most artists, the most dreamers. The one that looks at a child and sees infinite possibility instead of a strategic liability. The lights flickered again, and this time Zeftar saw something that made his secondary heart stop entirely. The walls of the command center had become transparent, and beyond them stretched not the familiar blackness of space, but something far more profound. He saw the galaxy itself, not as a collection of stars and planets, but as a living thing, breathing with energies and possibilities that his people had never imagined. And, scattered throughout that vast tapestry, he saw them. Humans. Not in ships or stations or colonies, but existing as pure consciousness, dancing between stars like children playing in a garden that spanned the cosmos itself. This is what we became, Dr. Rodriguez said gently, when we learned that the universe wasn't something to be conquered. It was something to be embraced. The alien general lost his composure. Part 2. The emergency session of the Hegemony Council had been called within minutes of Dr. Kim's appearance in their most secure chamber. Admiral Vrex, then Supreme Commander of the Galactic Hegemony, stood before the assembled leadership of 14 species, his crest feathers bristling with agitation. The massive war room, carved from a single asteroid and protected by quantum barriers that had never been breached, now felt as vulnerable as an eggshell. Report, Vrex then commanded, his voice carrying the authority of absolute power. Fleet Admiral Zorka of the 3rd Battle Group stepped forward, his massive frame trembling with what might have been fear or rage. Sir, the humans have eliminated 73% of our active fleet. No weapons fire detected. No energy signatures. The ships simply ceased to function. As if someone had turned off a switch. 73%, Vrex then repeated slowly. In how long? 17 minutes, sir. The council chamber erupted in chittering, roaring, and electronic screeching as representatives from various species tried to process the impossible. The Hegemony fleet was the largest military force in known space, spread across hundreds of systems, protected by technology that had taken millennia to develop. For it to be neutralized in less than 20 minutes defied every law of physics and warfare they understood. Counselor Thex of the Silicon Mines projected his thoughts directly into the chamber's quantum field. This cannot be accurate. Our sensor networks show no evidence of human military expansion. Intelligence reports indicate they control fewer than 30 star systems. Admiral Vrexthen's feathers darkened to the color of dried blood. Then, explain how a single human materialized inside our most secure facility without triggering a single alarm. Explain how our fleets are being destroyed faster than we can even receive distress signals. The human in question stood quietly in the center of the chamber, seemingly unbothered by the chaos around her. Dr. Sarah Kim appeared to be in her 40s, wearing simple civilian clothing and an expression of infinite patience. She had made no threatening gestures, carried no visible weapons, and had politely declined to explain how she had bypassed every security measure the hegemony possessed. Perhaps, she said when the shouting finally died down, we should discuss why I'm here. Vrexthen's crest feathers flared. You will explain your presence and surrender yourself for interrogation. The hegemony does not negotiate with terrorists. Dr. Kim tilted her head slightly. Terrorists? That's an interesting perspective. From our point of view, we're simply responding to an unprovoked attack on our children. I'm here to offer you a choice that your field commander apparently couldn't appreciate. What choice? Counselor Vashtar of the Crystalline Collective demanded, her resonance making the chamber walls hum. You have already demonstrated your hostility. The hegemony responds to aggression with overwhelming force. The human scientist smiled sadly. Counselor, with respect, you no longer have overwhelming force. As of about 30 seconds ago, your remaining fleets have also been neutralized. I'm sorry about the timing, but Earth Command wanted to ensure your full attention. Admiral Vrexthen's tactical implants suddenly blazed with incoming signals. Reports from across hegemony space confirmed the impossible. Every active military vessel, from the smallest patrol craft to the massive dreadnoughts of the core defense fleet, had gone dark simultaneously. Not destroyed, not damaged, simply offline, as if some cosmic hand had reached out and flipped a switch. How? Vrexthen whispered. Dr. Kim gestured to a chair that materialized from nowhere. May I sit? This explanation might take a while. The chair was clearly human in design, comfortable and unpretentious. It simply hadn't existed moments before, and the quantum sensors in the chamber insisted it still didn't exist, despite being clearly visible to everyone present. You're asking how we accomplished something that should be impossible, Dr. Kim continued, settling into the chair with a soft sigh. But, you're starting from flawed assumptions. You assume that space travel requires ships, that communication requires time, that matter is solid and immutable. You've built your entire civilization on Newtonian thinking, even though you use quantum technology. Counselor Thex's silicon consciousness sparked with frustrated confusion. We have mastered quantum mechanics. Our entire infrastructure depends on quantum field manipulation. You've learned to use quantum effects, the human corrected gently. But, you've never truly understood what they mean. You treat quantum mechanics like a more efficient engine rather than a fundamental description of reality itself. She stood and walked to the center of the chamber, her movements causing ripples in spacetime that the assembled council members could almost see. Let me ask you something. When you developed faster-than-light travel, how did you conceptualize it? Admiral Vrexthen's training reasserted itself. Standard Alcubierre drive principles. Spacetime manipulation, creating a bubble of distorted spacetime that allows effective faster-than-light travel without violating relativistic constraints. Exactly, Dr. Kim nodded. You found a way to cheat the speed limit by bending the rules. Very clever. But, what if I told you the speed limit itself is an illusion? What if distance and time are just suggestions? The chamber's atmosphere control systems struggled to maintain stability as reality seemed to hiccup around the human. For a moment, the council members saw her as she truly was, not a single being standing in one place, but a consciousness that existed across multiple dimensions simultaneously, connected to something vast and incomprehensibly complex. Impossible, Counselor Vashtar resonated. Causality cannot be violated. The fundamental constants of the universe cannot be ignored. Dr. Kim's expression grew almost maternal. Counselor, when human children first learn about atoms, we tell them that electrons orbit the nucleus like tiny planets around a sun. It's a useful metaphor, but it's completely wrong. Electrons don't orbit anything. They exist as probability clouds, simultaneously everywhere and nowhere until observed. We teach the simple version first because the truth is too strange for young minds to grasp. She gestured, and, suddenly, the chamber was filled with equations not displayed on screens or projected as holograms, but hanging in the air like crystalline structures of pure mathematics. The assembled leaders recognized some of them: quantum field equations, relativity formulas, the basic building blocks of their technology. But, intertwined with the familiar were expressions that hurt to look at directly, mathematics that seemed to twist space itself. Your species made the same mistake most sapient life makes, Dr. Kim continued. You learned enough physics to build faster-than-light engines and energy weapons, then stopped asking questions. You treated the universe like a machine to be operated rather than a puzzle to be solved. Admiral Vrexton found his voice, though it cracked with strain. And humans continued asking questions? We're very good at asking questions, the human agreed. It's what we do when we're curious about something. And we were very, very curious about why the universe worked the way it did. The equations in the air began to move, rearranging themselves into new configurations. Some of the council members recognized the pattern. It was the mathematical description of their own bodies, their consciousness, their very existence, reduced to information and probability. What we discovered, Dr. Kim said quietly, is that consciousness and reality are far more intimately connected than anyone imagined. The observer effect in quantum mechanics isn't just about measurement changing outcomes. It's about the fundamental role of awareness in creating what we call existence. Counselor Thex's silicon mind processed the implications faster than his organic colleagues. You're suggesting that consciousness shapes reality directly. I'm not suggesting it, the human replied. I'm demonstrating it. She closed her eyes, and the chamber filled with the sound of children laughing. Not through the audio systems, but somehow directly into the consciousness of everyone present. For a moment, they saw what Dr. Kim was remembering: human children at play in the Proxima Station's educational center. 7-year-old Marcus drawing pictures of imaginary aliens who might become friends. 10-year-old Anna explaining to her teacher how she thought faster-than-light travel might work using modified quantum entanglement. 14-year-old David writing poetry about the beauty of nebulae. These were the children you killed, Dr. Kim said, her voice carrying harmonics that bypassed the universal translator entirely and spoke directly to the empathy centers of their brains. 17 young minds that saw the universe as a place of wonder and possibility. They died because your tactical algorithms classified them as acceptable losses. The memory images faded, replaced by something darker. The assembled council members saw the hegemony attack as the humans had experienced it, not as a military operation against strategic targets, but as the deliberate murder of innocence. They felt the grief of parents receiving news of their children's deaths, the rage of a species that valued its young above everything else. You want to know how we destroyed your fleets? Dr. Kim asked. We asked the universe to calculate what would have happened if your ships had never been built. Then, we made that calculation true. Admiral Vrexton's legs trembled. That's not how reality works. It's exactly how reality works, the human corrected gently. Reality is information processing itself. Consciousness observing and collapsing quantum states. While imposing pattern on chaos. When you truly understand that, when you accept that the boundary between mind and universe is arbitrary, well, a lot of previously impossible things become quite manageable. The chamber's environmental systems detected massive gravitational anomalies, as if the space around Dr. Kim was folding in ways that shouldn't exist. The assembled leaders could feel it now, the weight of human attention focused through technologies and techniques that made their most advanced science look like children playing with rocks. The hegemony will not be intimidated, Vrexton declared, though his voice lacked conviction. We have contingency protocols, backup fleets, automated defense systems across 600 worlds. Dr. Kim nodded sympathetically. You had those things. As of a few minutes ago, every hegemony military asset has been, let's call it temporarily deactivated. Your soldiers are alive and unharmed, by the way. We're not monsters. But their weapons and ships will remain inoperative until this situation is resolved. Counselor Vashtar's crystalline form chimed with distress. What do you want? Tribute? Territory? Submission to human authority? We want you to stop killing children, Dr. Kim replied simply. That's it. That's literally all we want. Stop targeting civilian populations. Stop treating conquest as a virtue. Stop seeing other species as resources to be consumed or obstacles to be eliminated. The mathematical equations hanging in the air rearranged themselves again, this time forming a three-dimensional map of the galaxy. But this wasn't the galaxy as the hegemony knew it, a collection of worlds to be conquered and resources to be exploited. This was the galaxy as humans saw it, a vast garden of possibilities, where every world teemed with unique forms of beauty and consciousness. We could have destroyed you completely, Dr. Kim continued. Wiped your species from existence as easily as turning off a light. But that would make us no better than what we're trying to stop. Instead, we're offering you something the hegemony has never offered anyone else, a choice. She gestured, and, suddenly, the chamber was filled with visions of possible futures. In one, the hegemony continued its path of conquest and domination, eventually meeting extinction when they encountered something truly beyond their ability to control. In another, they transformed themselves into something greater, contributing their knowledge and perspective to a galactic community built on cooperation rather than subjugation. Your species has impressive organizational abilities, the human observed. You've managed to coordinate across hundreds of worlds, maintain complex supply chains, govern diverse populations. Those are valuable skills. Skills that could be used to build something magnificent instead of merely conquering what others have built. Admiral Rex then found himself staring at the vision of cooperation, seeing hegemony ships working alongside vessels from dozens of species to explore unknown regions of space, to study phenomena beyond current understanding, to create art and knowledge and wonder on a scale that dwarfed anything they had achieved through conquest alone. And if we refuse, he asked quietly. Dr. Kim's expression grew sad. Then, we'll ensure you can't harm anyone else. Not by destroying you, but by containing you. Every hegemony world will become a closed system. Your technology will function, your people will live comfortable lives, but you'll never again be able to expand beyond your current borders. You'll become a galactic curiosity, the species that chose stagnation over growth. The implications hit the assembled leaders like a physical blow. For a civilization built on expansion and conquest, permanent isolation would be a fate worse than destruction. They would become prisoners in their own empire, slowly declining as their purpose and drive withered away. How long do we have to decide? Counselor Thex asked. Take all the time you need, Dr. Kim replied. But understand that every moment you delay, every order for continued hostilities, every attempt to restart your military operations, will be seen as a choice in favor of isolation. We won't wait indefinitely for you to evolve. She stood from her impossible chair, which faded away as if it had never existed. I know this is difficult to accept. Your entire culture is built around the idea that strength equals conquest, that progress means taking what others have built. But you're wrong about what strength really is. The human gestured again, and, suddenly, the assembled leaders could see beyond the chamber, beyond the asteroid base, beyond the local star system. They saw human children on hundreds of worlds, learning and laughing and dreaming of futures filled with possibility. They saw human adults working alongside dozens of other species, sharing knowledge and culture and wonder. They saw a civilization that had grown strong not by taking from others, but by nurturing the potential that existed everywhere. This is what humans became when we learned that the universe is big enough for everyone, Dr. Kim said softly. This is what you could become too, if you choose to see strength as the ability to protect and nurture rather than conquer and consume. The visions faded, leaving the council chamber feeling empty and cold. Dr. Kim smiled one last time, her expression filled with the hope that they would make the right choice. I'll leave you to discuss this among yourselves, she said. When you're ready to give us your answer, just ask. We'll hear you. And then, she was gone, as simply and impossibly as she had arrived, leaving behind only the fading equations that hung in the air like mathematical ghosts and the weight of a choice that would determine the future of the galaxy. #The alien general lost his composure. Part 3. 3 days had passed since Dr. Kim's impossible visit to the Hegemony Council. 3 days of frantic emergency meetings, heated debates, and desperate attempts to understand exactly what humanity had become. Commander Zeftar found himself in an unprecedented position, a field commander whose tactical situation had become so incomprehensible that all standard military doctrine had become meaningless. He stood in the observation deck of the Eternal Dominion, staring out at what should have been empty space but wasn't. Somehow, without moving, his flagship had become surrounded by a construct that defied every law of physics he understood. It wasn't a ship, wasn't a station, wasn't anything with a definable structure. It was more like a living geometry, a space where human consciousness had reached out and gently rearranged reality itself. The 3 human diplomats had remained aboard, not as prisoners but as guests? Observers? He wasn't sure anymore. They had made no demands, issued no ultimatums, simply waited with the infinite patience of beings who existed outside normal concepts of time and urgency. Dr. Rodriguez approached the observation port, her footsteps echoing in the silence that had settled over the ship since the crew realized they were completely powerless to affect their situation. "Beautiful, isn't it?" she said quietly, looking out at the impossible structure surrounding them. Zeftar's compound eyes tracked patterns in the construct that seemed to change every time he looked away. "What is it?" "A manifestation of collective human consciousness," she replied. "When enough of us focus on the same idea, when we share the same intent, reality becomes malleable. This is what happens when several billion people simultaneously decide that something needs to exist." The alien commander felt his secondary heart skip. "Several billion? How many humans are involved in this?" Dr. Rodriguez smiled, and, for the first time since she'd come aboard, it reached her eyes. "Commander, did you think we came here alone? Every human who has ever lost a child is watching this moment. Every parent, every teacher, every person who has ever looked at a young face and seen the future itself, they're all here, in a sense." Captain Chen appeared in the doorway, carrying a datapad that displayed reports from across hegemony space. "The Council's reached a decision," he announced. "They've requested formal negotiation talks." Zeftar's mandibles clicked with bitter amusement. "Negotiation? What's left to negotiate? You've demonstrated that our entire military capability is meaningless against you. Our fleets are dead metal floating in space. Our weapons are toys. What position do we have from which to negotiate?" Ambassador Walsh emerged from behind Chen, her diplomatic smile back in place but somehow fundamentally changed. "Commander, you're making the same mistake your leadership has made throughout this crisis. You're thinking in terms of power and weakness, victory and defeat. But this isn't a war we're fighting. It's an intervention." The 3 humans led Zeftar to the ship's communication center, where a quantum link had been established to the Hegemony Council chambers. The assembled leadership of 14 species appeared in holographic projection, their various forms reflecting the confusion and desperation that had consumed their empire. Admiral Vrexton spoke first, his crest feathers dull with exhaustion. "Human representatives, the Council has considered your proposition. We are prepared to discuss terms for a cessation of hostilities." Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward. "Admiral, I need you to understand something fundamental. We're not here to negotiate terms. We're here to help you evolve beyond the need for hostilities entirely." Counselor Thex's silicon consciousness flickered with frustration. "How can we evolve when you've rendered us helpless? Your actions have eliminated our agency, our ability to choose our own path." "Have they?" Captain Chen asked mildly. He activated a control on his datapad, and, suddenly, the holographic display expanded to show the status of hegemony space in real time. "Your fleets are offline, yes. But your people are unharmed. Your infrastructure is intact. Your worlds continue to function normally. The only thing we've removed is your ability to make war." The display zoomed in on various hegemony worlds, showing bustling cities, functioning governments, thriving civilian populations. But missing were the massive military installations, the orbital weapons platforms, the fleet bases that had once projected hegemony power across the galaxy. "You want to know what we've given you?" Dr. Rodriguez continued. "We've given you the opportunity to discover what your civilization looks like when it's not defined by conquest. For the first time in your history, your species can focus on creation instead of destruction. Admiral Vrexthen's voice carried a note of desperation. But, without our military might, how do we maintain order? How do we govern 600 worlds? How do we prevent rebellion and chaos? Ambassador Walsh's expression softened. Admiral, may I tell you about a human child named David Chun? No relation to the captain here, just a common name among our species. David was one of the children killed in your attack on Proxima Station. She gestured, and the holographic display filled with images of a young boy with bright eyes and an infectious smile. David wanted to be a xenobiologist when he grew up. He was fascinated by the idea that life could take so many different forms throughout the galaxy. He used to draw pictures of imaginary alien creatures and write little stories about their cultures and civilizations. The images shifted, showing David's artwork, colorful, imaginative depictions of alien beings living in harmony, working together, exploring the wonders of the universe as friends rather than enemies. Do you know what David's last school project was about? Walsh continued. It was a proposal for a galactic peace organization. A child's idea, really. He imagined representatives from every species working together to solve problems, share knowledge, and explore the universe as partners. Admiral Vrexthen's feathers rustled uncomfortably. A naive dream. The galaxy is not a peaceful place. Different species have incompatible needs, conflicting interests. Order requires strength. Does it? Dr. Rodriguez asked. Let me show you something. The holographic display changed again, this time showing a star system the hegemony had never seen before. It was clearly inhabited, with orbital habitats, thriving worlds, and space traffic that spoke of a complex civilization. But there were no weapons visible, no military installations, no signs of the constant defensive preparations that characterized hegemony space. This is the Harmony Collective, Dr. Rodriguez explained. 37 different species, sharing 7 star systems. They've been living and working together for over 800 years. No central government, no military hierarchy, no conquest-based expansion. They organize through consensus, share resources based on need, and resolve conflicts through dialogue and compromise. Counselor Vashtar's crystalline form chimed with skepticism. Impossible. Competing species cannot coexist without conflict. Resource scarcity, territorial disputes, biological incompatibilities. They share technology, Captain Chen interjected. Each species contributes their unique perspectives and capabilities. The aquatic depth swimmers excel at closed system engineering. The silicon-based resonance stones are natural quantum computers. The energy beings called light dancers can manipulate matter at the subatomic level. Together, they've solved problems that no single species could handle alone. The display showed examples, impossible architectural marvels that served the needs of multiple species simultaneously, scientific research stations where beings of radically different biologies work side by side, art forms that combined the aesthetic sensibilities of dozens of different cultures into something transcendently beautiful. And their population growth? Zeftar asked, his tactical mind still searching for the hidden weakness in the system. Expansion pressures? Economic competition? Ambassador Walsh smiled. They don't expand by conquering. They expand by invitation. When they encounter a new species, they share their knowledge and resources freely. Most civilizations that meet them eventually ask to join the collective. They've never been refused. Admiral Vrexthen's tactical implants processed the implications. You're suggesting we abandon everything that made us strong. Dismantle our entire civilization structure. We're suggesting you discover what real strength looks like, Dr. Rodriguez replied. The Harmony Collective doesn't need weapons because no one wants to fight them. They don't need armies because no one wants to conquer them. They don't need walls because they've built something worth protecting through cooperation rather than domination. Counselor Thex's consciousness sparked with analytical interest despite himself. Their technological capabilities? Far beyond anything the hegemony has achieved, Captain Chen admitted. When you combine the creative potential of 37 different species working together, when you can focus all your resources on exploration and creation instead of warfare, and control, well, they've developed things that seem like magic even to us. The holographic display showed glimpses of collective technology, ships that existed partially in normal space and partially in other dimensions, allowing them to travel instantaneously across galactic distances, habitat construction that involved literally growing space stations from modified organisms, energy systems that tapped into forces most species didn't even know existed. But they maintain no military forces at all? Admiral Vrexton asked, his professional skepticism warring with growing fascination. None whatsoever, Dr. Rodriguez confirmed. They don't need them. When your entire civilization is built around making life better for everyone you encounter, most conflicts simply disappear. Commander Zeftar found himself studying the images with an intensity that surprised him. What about the species that refuse to cooperate? That prefer conquest to collaboration? Ambassador Walsh's expression grew carefully neutral. Those species tend to encounter other civilizations like humanity. Civilizations that have learned to protect the innocent and nurture the peaceful. The universe has a way of balancing itself. The implication hung in the air like a sword. The hegemony was being offered a choice between evolution and extinction, between joining the community of advanced civilizations or being quarantined until they learned to coexist peacefully. How? Admiral Vrexton asked finally. How do we transition from a conquest-based civilization to whatever this collective has achieved? Our entire culture, our political structure, our economic system, everything is built around expansion and control. Dr. Rodriguez stepped forward. The same way human children learn to share their toys instead of fighting over them. You start with small steps, guided by those who have already learned the lesson. The holographic display shifted one final time, showing a new image that made every being in the communication link gasp in amazement. It was the galaxy itself, but not as they knew it. This was the galaxy as it was becoming, a vast network of interconnected civilizations, sharing knowledge and resources and wonder across millions of light years. This is what David Shin dreamed about, Ambassador Walsh said softly. This is what every human child who ever looked up at the stars and wondered about the beings that might live there hoped they would find. A universe where curiosity is stronger than fear, where cooperation creates more than competition ever could. In the center of the galactic map, highlighted in soft blue, was a region of space that included both hegemony territory and human space. The boundaries between them were gone, replaced by something that looked more like a garden than an empire. We're offering you the chance to help build this, Captain Chen said. To use your organizational skills, your technological capabilities, your understanding of diverse species management, all of it in service of something greater than conquest. Commander Zeftar studied the map, his tactical mind automatically analyzing the logistics of such a massive cooperative venture. It would require unprecedented coordination, resource sharing on a scale that dwarfed anything the hegemony had ever attempted. It would mean abandoning every assumption about power and control that had shaped his entire life. It would also be the most magnificent undertaking in galactic history. And if we choose this path, Admiral Vrexton said slowly, what guarantee do we have that humanity won't simply dominate us through superior technology? Dr. Rodriguez laughed, a sound filled with genuine warmth. Admiral, do you know what humans call our most advanced technology? We call it teaching. Everything we've shown you, everything we've learned about the nature of reality and consciousness and cooperative civilization, we want to share it. We want to teach it to anyone willing to learn. The universe is vast enough for everyone to find their own path to greatness, Ambassador Walsh added. We're not interested in ruling you or controlling you. We're interested in learning from you, and helping you learn from us, and seeing what wonders we can create together. The communication link fell silent as the assembled leaders of the hegemony contemplated a future they had never imagined possible. A future where strength meant protection instead of conquest, where power meant the ability to create rather than destroy, where the highest honor went not to the mightiest warrior but to the wisest teacher. Finally, Admiral Vrexton spoke. If we choose to attempt this transformation, what happens to our military personnel? Our combat specialists? Our entire warrior culture? Captain Chen smiled. Admiral, do you know what humanity's most dangerous warriors became when we transcended the need for warfare? They became our teachers, our protectors, our explorers. They became the ones who venture into unknown dangers so that others can follow safely. They became the guardians of knowledge and the shepherds of the curious. War is not about destruction, Dr. Rodriguez added. War is about protecting what you love from those who would harm it. When everyone becomes dedicated to protection and creation, the need for traditional warfare simply evolves into something more beautiful. Commander Zeftar looked out at the impossible structure surrounding his ship, then, at the three humans who had somehow managed to transform an act of war into an offer of redemption. He thought about the 17 children who had died in the attack on Proxima Station, and about the future those children might have helped create if they had lived. "I have a question," he said quietly. "Of course," Ambassador Walsh replied. David Chen's dream of a galactic peace organization, was it just a child's imagination, or was it something more? The three humans exchanged glances, and, for a moment their diplomatic masks dropped entirely. What Zeftar saw beneath was something that made his understanding of humanity expand once again. They weren't just representatives of their species. They were the inheritors of every dream their children had ever shared, the guardians of every hope their young had ever expressed. "Commander," Dr. Rodriguez said softly, "David's dream became the blueprint for everything we've built since his death. Every decision we've made, every technology we've developed, every relationship we've formed with other species, all of it has been guided by the vision of a 14-year-old boy who believed the universe could be a place of wonder instead of fear." The weight of that revelation settled over the alien commander like a physical presence. Humanity hadn't just responded to the death of their children with violence. They had responded with the determination to create the kind of universe their children had dreamed of living in. "Admiral Vrex then," Zeftar said, addressing the holographic image of his supreme commander. "I formally request permission to serve as the hegemony's first ambassador to the Harmony Collective. I believe we have much to learn." The feathers on Admiral Vrexthen's crest slowly lifted, taking on the bright colors of hope rather than the dull hues of defeat. "Permission granted, Commander. And, may the ancestors forgive us for taking so long to understand what strength really means." As the communication link closed and the impossible structure around the ship began to shift and change, preparing to transport them to a place where former enemies could learn to become friends, Zeftar realized that the war was indeed over. Humanity had won without firing a shot, had conquered without claiming territory, had demonstrated strength without violence. They had done exactly what their children would have wanted them to do. And, in doing so, they had saved not just the hegemony, but the galaxy itself from the endless cycle of conquest and domination that had defined interstellar civilization for millennia. The future belonged to the dreamers now, and the universe was vast enough to hold all their hopes.